Nirvana speaks the oracle, and I am saved. Thank you, listener, for memory.
So when someone opens the channel, so to speak, and that was actually a book by that title. It is related to the training the shaman has, especially when you've learned yourself enough the particular way that you tend to do it. You're going to go to that place. It involves an intentional alteration of consciousness to leave normal baseline waking consciousness, which is not so damn conducive to much of anything, except to, as Freud would say, reality testing against the walls of the constrained physicalist here and now, from a frame of reference of ego, and bouncing off all the stuff that is ego allowable and super ego culturally allowable, and that's the box you're in, and that's normally what you're limited to working with. And when you can destabilize the homeostatic baseline presenting problems, starting each new day with discrete state of consciousness, if you can destabilize from it or be destabilized from it, de-automatized from it, you then move to that heterostatic state, that betwixt and between state, which according to even biological morphological differentiation research and others is that you become open to susceptible to what in chaos theory is called strange attractors. It's just a metaphor. Other ways you could look at it too. But you become so tip of the tongue, butterfly on the other side of the planet, subtle in the great nuance of the interpenetration and at one minute of things that you could actually be affected by a tiny. I forgot what I was talking about. Which again, I've grown more comfortable over the years, including in front of doctoral students, and when I teach. I've been teaching for 34 years in doctoral programs. It's okay when I lose my train of thought, and usually, unless they're really very tightly wrapped and are threatened by me or something, it's okay for them too. Because when I'm not losing my train of thought, there's enough in the train of thought that are coming out of the undifferentiatedness. Not that I'm always channeling in that way that I was talking about earlier, but that's good enough for them. They're getting enough. They're getting their tuition's worth. And I don't stray like I used to in earlier years from the curriculum and from even what the curriculum is supposed to be in professional schools, let alone my own personal curriculum. So I'm much better at that. I stray less. And yet what I'm talking about on this tape so far is the art and science of straying. Straying from the fold, straying from the box, straying from the containment vehicle, straying from the self and culturally induced, consensus reality induced limitations on the case of the potential of a human being to range more far, to have the impermeable membranes become ever more permeable, to have opacity, the normal presenting problem and stage-specific state of the opacity of our psyches and our somas and our interpersonals and our habits and all that stuff, to be able to alchemically, willfully, and who's doing the entraining of it, who's in the driver's seat of the agency that's actually actively doing it, causative with regard to it. I think it's part of the system allowing the rest of the system to work with it. It's part of the system getting outside of its thermodynamic branch system and being susceptible to those nuances, those strange attractors, and praying, setting the intention, programming it that I just don't want any old lower astral incubi, succubi, lost, alcoholic, disembodied suicide to climb in there and work my puppet strings or take over my body. I mean, my God, I've spent too much work in this incarnation to let people diddle with me that way, whether they're physical or not. Get thee behind me, not so much Satan, but people who are not in service of the larger good at this point that deeply needs that. So, see, now, I had the sails up there, and the wind kept the sails full-bellied, and words were coming out. Then the wind dropped, and the sails dropped. The Aeolian lyre, or harp, whatever the hell it is, fell silent because the winds died down. Now, can I sit here in all honesty say that those were not endophasic, self-generated winds, and everything that came out of my mouth was from my own contained psychoenergetic system? All I can tell you phenomenologically is it doesn't feel that way. And I've been, introspecting and self-reporting for 66 years now. Not every one of them, but most of them. So I trust myself in the sense of what I'm witnessing to, and it's a process. It's a very familiar process now. And I don't know if you can do weekend workshops on it. I don't know if you can teach everybody, if you can put it in a bottle, if you can inject it in people's systems, if you can sort of do a light show and kind of train them into it, or some kind of frequency following brain entrainment thing in spades, a much more complex version of it, to destabilize the baseline presenting problem, locked in consciousness, move it to a discrete altered state that allows this channeling, this at one mint, this non-local correlatedness, this access. I mean, on a very good day, it is more mind at large coming into the reducing valve into the local mind. It is the universal consciousness field in its undifferentiated form, allowing someone to become expansive enough that the normal way they collapse the wave function, it is done from a different locus of the collapsing from place, and that locus is maybe itself more smeared out, is more an identity condition with the universal ground. So it's almost like God within itself is collapsing its own wave function and bringing into local differentiated existence different worlds, different beings. Let there be a world. And I think that's probably what happens. And interestingly enough, there's a whole new spate of books of Christians, essentially usually Christians, who are trying to make their peace with quantum physics. And they're saying, wait a minute, and then somebody gets the bright idea. In the creativity, probably when they had a strange dream or an entity channeled it to them and they didn't know what was happening. Who knows? Or when they were just getting inspired like me. And it occurred to them, and we've now got, I could go up and get them for you, and I've read them all now. I've got about 7 books, each one of which shares in common. Again, a guy named Polkinghorne, a British scientist, but there's others more recently, a lot of them, where the gist of these books is, how do we make our peace between quantum physics and theology and the Christian ethos? And so one of the ways they're trying to do it, how do you keep your God at the same time? How do we keep God in the picture? How do we don't want to? And they've got a system now, and I like it. God can collapse the wave function too. Thank you very much. When there's a miracle, a siddha, when there's extraordinary, when there's a normal willing suspension of the normal laws of science, it's God saying, well, normally I keep a normal program in place with this guy, and it keeps making the mountains and the valleys and the tables and the chairs and the laws of physics, long before Newton and long before people probably here. And that's the way I kind of set off part of myself out of phase with itself, and then all the interference pattern, the interferometry, and the implicate-explicate order, interpenetration shit going on there. It was me playing around with myself and testing my own creativity and making worlds and setting up stations and foci and projections of myself, normally in a veiled, amnesic state, to then experience other as a creation focus, even though they know they were locus, experiencing creation loci or spread loci and interacting with it thereby. And in this case, I forgot what I was talking about again. Again, sometimes it is more disconcerting than other times because I have a responsibility not to lose my train of thought, because there's a purpose to modeling losing trains of thought and to have a whole rationale for what good it can do and what it can model. But too many of them in a row is not really defensible, because I made the point with the first time I brought it up, or the first time it happened, so don't do it again, at least in that round. Okay, the winds are dying down again. The peacefulness, the consciousness without an object, that's the paradox. I go back in, the winds die down, I sit here, I introspect, I roam over my own subjective state, I taste it phenomenologically. It's so easy to kind of take the broom and brush out the few things that are straying in, the sensate data from the room, the stray things coming up from the unconscious or the preconscious. As they're coming in, all the meditators know this, you kind of just, you don't get attached to it, you just sort of witness it, and you sort of hope it'll go away, or just kind of no control freak about it. And in my case, it doesn't take much of the broom work. It starts to come in, I can't even quite tell you what it is, but it's a lurking, it's just outside the periphery, across that veil. And no, not now, little bird, go back. It's like an inverse St. Francis metaphor. St. Francis liked the birds and stuff, light on him. Animals liked him because he wasn't sending out all the normal fear crap, zeitgeist stuff, I think. And so he was more, user-friendly, like pest-assisted therapy is very good for people because they don't have all the human baggage that they're bringing to the situation. And humans know it, and they can also love and be loved that way more than all the constrained versions with people so much.
The flood will come, but you must not forget.